Okay, this video is going to take us through some concatenation principles that we didn't discuss in Chapter 2, and also with the length method, which we also didn't discuss in Chapter 2 that we need to. Unfortunately, you're going to need to take notes on your own paper or type your notes as you watch the video, however you want to do that. Here we go. So the thing is that we're going to first discuss the difference between a string variable and a string literal. We've been using the word string, but there's really a little bit more definition here. A string variable is actually refers, well, let's just take a look at this declaration with initialization. So you have the variable first name is declared as a string and it's storing or has been assigned the string Sally. Okay, so the variable, string variable is first name because it stores a string, stores strings. So that's why it's called a string variable. Then a string literal is the actual string or a particular string. So in this case, Sally would be the string literal because it's a specific or particular, the actual string. So that's a string literal. This is a string variable. Now what happens is we also have another term that we haven't used yet is number literals. Number literals just refers to actual numbers or particular numbers like 7, 14.3, 6.12. Those are all number literals. We call them numbers or numeric data. And so we're going to show how to concatenate string literals and number literals really quick here. So if you look at on the left side here, we have a print statement. Now when you print a number or a number literal, you do not need to have quotation marks around it. The output will be a 3 in this case. It doesn't need to be doesn't need to have quotation marks around it. In fact, if you put quotation marks around it, it becomes a string literal instead of a number literal. And that's going to be important, as we'll see later on down the road. Then when you have two number literals or two numbers together with a plus sign in between, it's not concatenation, it's actually addition. And the compiler recognizes the two number literals and adds them together. So the output here is going to be 7. So just make notes on this, and you'll need this later on to be able to refer back to this. The third print statement. Now you have a string literal right here, and it's being, and then on the other side of the concatenation operator is a number literal. In this case, the 3 in a sense really is converted to a string and is joined, concatenated with the string. So you have the string and a number literal just form a string. There's no longer a number necessarily there. So this would print day 3. Okay, the next one, you have the same thing. You have a number literal and a string literal. And even though they're on different sides, they're still going to do the same idea. They're going to join together. So 3 days. Now, this is where it gets tricky, because if you have more than two, we'll call them operands, what's going to happen is now, this is the important thing, is that that when the compiler when it has more than two items that are going to be concatenated or joined, it's going to work from left to right, one pair at a time. All right, so the very first thing that's going to happen here is it's going to print, oops, that didn't work. So it's going to take 3 and 4 together first. Now, since those are two number literals, it's going to do just like it did up here, and that's going to become 7. Okay, so now what you're left with is a number literal and a string literal. So now a string and a number together are going to form a string. And so the output here is going to be 7 days. Now again, just write this stuff down, and then later on you might have to make reference to it until you understand it completely. Okay, now here, what we have here is day. Here's a string literal, and so the first thing it's going to do is it's going to, I keep doing that, I can't do that. It's going to take a string literal and a number literal and join those two together. So it works one pair at a time from left to right. And so it takes a string and a numeric data, and it forms a string day 3. And so now what you're left, the next pair is day 3 plus, which is a string, plus, which actually I probably should go like this, day 3. And it's going to concatenate it with a number literal. So a string and a number, it's just going to join them together. It's not adding, it's joining together, because you can't add a string and a number together and get a number value. And so this is going to say day 3, 4. Okay, it's just joining them. It's not adding. So you can only add when you have two pieces of numeric data or two number literals together. And then the last one is if you want it to be able to print the sum of those two number literals, then what you got to do here is you have a string and then you have parentheses. So you're going to do the parentheses first. And so what we have here is we have day concatenated with, it's going to concatenate with 7. So the 3 plus 4 in parentheses are two numeric literals that are going to be added together, and they become 7. And now it's going to concatenate because you have a string and a numeric or a number literal, and so they are concatenated, and so now you have day 7. All right, so those are some things to keep in mind, or to have as far as notes go. Now the other thing that we want to look at is a method that we're going to learn about. We're going to learn a couple of string methods. We're going to learn one tonight just to get started. And so there's a thing called a length method. Now we know a method has a certain action to it. It accomplishes specific tasks. Just like down here, we've talked about the println method, and the println method will then will display output and move the insertion point to the next line. That's its actions, its tasks. So here the length has a specific task, and what it does is it actually calculates the length or the number of characters in a string, or string literal. So this returns an int value equal to the number of characters. So it returns an int value equal to the number of characters in a string or a string literal. And we've talked about before already how that characters can be numbers, can be letters, can be symbols, spaces, punctuation, those types of things. And they're always going to be indicated, or they're going to be made evident as being a string because of the quotation marks. So you should be able to tell me how many characters Sally has in it. So if you said 5, that is correct. Now count how many in Sally Sue. How many characters are there? So if you add the letters and the space, that becomes 9. So that's how long that is. That's how many characters there are. Are you there? Here? Question mark. Okay, so what's the number of characters there? So you should have 3 plus 3 is 6 plus 4 is 10. Then you have 2 spaces, that's 12. And then you have the question mark, that's 13. All right. Now, the length method, this is how you use it. Let's say that we're given the declaration with with initialization. Fave pizza is a string and it's storing meat lovers in its memory location, and we want to print the number of characters in that string literal. So what you do is you put the name of the variable. Okay, it's the name of the variable that contains the string. That's the way it's always going to be. Or it could be a string itself. In this case, it's the name of the variable. The variable is going to be called. And then it says a dot. And then it has the method name, which is length. And then empty parentheses. All right. Now, what is the value of favepizza.length? The value is the number of characters in the memory location of Fave Pizza. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So the output, so it returns when this length method returns an 11. So it's going to print 11 is what it does. Okay, that's how it works. So now you should be able to pause the video and and calculate or do all of these problems here. Calculate what they or what their value is or what is being printed, and then turn the video back on, and I'll show you what the answers should be. Okay, so name.length should just be all that is going to be is up in name. There's 5 characters in here, which you already said, so that value is 5. The full name.length is going to be full name, so it's going to be 9. That's 9 characters in the variable full name. In this one, phrase.length returns the value 13. And so and then full name.length returns 9. And so num1 is assigned. Now this is because there are 2 number literals, then it's going to add them together. It's going to become 22. So 22 is going to be stored in num1. So the 22 will be stored because of the assignment operator in num1. Okay, now we have a string literal, and then name.length returns a 5. And so we have a string literal and a number literal, and so that makes this a concatenation operator, not an addition operator. So it'll become day 5 is what that will be. All right, and then E is going to go phrase.length. We said is going to be has 13 characters, and then name.length is 5 characters, and so 18 will be printed. So this is an addition operator, not a concatenation operator, because there are no strings there. The final example is you can actually have a string.length, and so it's going to calculate the length of that literal string or string literal. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So the value, the return value of this length method here is going to be 13. All right, so that is how the length method works.